All right, we are going to get started. So please finish up your last thought. If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, help me in shushing your neighbor very politely. Shh. Okay. So nice to see you all. Did you have a good lunch? Good. Good. I might have eaten the cookies out of more than one box. So we're back this afternoon for our last panel, if you will. A couple of quick announcements. There are extra boxes still in the back. Please take them with you. Please take them with you. Also, as you leave today, I know some of you are sort of trickling out. There are QR codes around the room. Please take our survey. We are a research institution, but we also want to hear from you about how today felt, how it went for you. This is sort of a different format than our traditional conference. We're trying some things out, and so that feedback would be really helpful. During our time together today, we've talked a lot about things like accountability and support. Some of those things being, really formal tools, things that have been institutionalized, like a consent decree. We've also talked about what it might look like to use informal tools to build things like trust when it comes to policing in Minneapolis. And so I am really excited to introduce this group of gentlemen up on the stage for our next panel. They all make up part of the Police and Black Men Project. And in a couple minutes, I'll have their facilitator talk a little bit more about what that project is. But just to first introduce, the facilitator, Dr. Bill Doherty, is down on the end. And then we have panelists Damian Winfield, Brantley Johnson, Prince Corbett, and Guy Bowling, as well as the 4th Precinct Inspector, Charlie Adams, Sergeant Will Gregory, and Sergeant George Warzinik.
All right, we had somebody dragged up here, Brantley. All right. Okay, well, good to see everybody. We're happy to be with you. My name is Bill Doherty. I've been the facilitator of the project. I'm just going to open with just a little bit of background, and then we're going to start in. We have a couple of extra chairs because when we get to the second question, which is going to be about sources of mistrust between police and the black community, we're going to invite a couple people who would like to join us up here and have conversation with us. So the Police and Black Men Project was started in 2017 after some high-profile police shootings of black men. Our mission is a group of Minneapolis police officers and black community members building relationships of trust to promote community safety. So we're building relationships of trust to promote community safety. Currently consists of 9 officers, 9 community members, and me as the facilitator. Activities we've done over these years, conversations among ourselves about events in Minneapolis and with the Minneapolis Police Department. We've led community conversations like the ones we're having with you today. We've done a couple trips to Montgomery, Alabama, where we've invited others to join us from the community and the police force, where we visit civil rights sites and have some pretty important conversations. We've done a number of media presentations. In fact, NPR sent Angela Davis with us to Montgomery. It was very powerful for all of us. And before COVID, we started to do cadet training, and we're hoping to get back to that before long. So we have a series of questions I'm going to pose. The first one is about how we got started and why these gentlemen are part of it. And then when we get to the second question, I'm going to be inviting a couple people who would like to join us up here for further conversation. So Question number one, and I'm going to ask a guy to go first on this, is how we got started and why each of us decided to join this project and why it's been meaningful to be part of it. So you want to launch us with how we got started?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, y'all can do better than that. Come on, let's do it one more time. Good afternoon, everybody. All right, y'all in for a treat. There's going to be a lively discussion with a lot of expertise here on this panel to talk about the Black Men and the Police and Black Men Project. My name is Guy Bowling. I'm one of the co-founders of this initiative, and for me, why I joined is way before a lot of the shootings happened, both here and across the nation. I felt a sense of outrage fatigue just based on the unarmed black man was just being killed across the country. And I felt that ultimately it was going to come here to Minneapolis. And this was before George Floyd. This then happened. Jamar Clark was one of the first ones that I knew that potentially it could happen here. And it happened. And I felt powerless in terms of what I could do. But I knew at the time the work that I was doing with black men in the community, particularly, specifically with low-income fathers, and not just black, but fathers across the board, culturally, racially, and ethnically, I knew that it could happen at any time to any one of them, in addition to the members of my family. And so the tension was there 10 years ago, right before we started this, but it was more than theoretical for me, it was personal, because I knew it was going to affect people I cared about. And then not too much longer after that, we had Philando Castile. And that was the one that kind of took me over the top. I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know what I could do about it. I just felt powerless. So I decided to connect with Dr. Bill Doherty because we had been working together, working with fathers, doing some leadership development stuff with them from people who graduated the program I was managing. And I said, can you use the same model that we had been using to develop these men into leaders to give back to their community because they're one of the largest untapped resource that we have in terms of fathers that we don't always utilize. And he helped me create a leadership component, putting these men in positions of leadership to empower other fathers to be better fathers, and that was part of the program. And so I said, using the approach of families and democracy and bringing together professionals and citizens, can we create something similar with the Black Men in Police Project? And so he said, yeah, and so part of it happened 10 years ago, well, actually 8 years to be exact, and we came up with what we wanted to do, and part of it was because the outrage fatigue that I felt, the work that I had already done in partnership with the University of Minnesota and Dr. Bill Doherty, but more importantly, I did not want to see any more black men getting killed. And the only way I felt at that time to do that was that the police department and the community, particularly black men, they need to have a better understanding of one another and humanize each other, because I felt at that time if we knew that and we did that, then we have a better outcome.
Thanks, Guy. So Charlie, start with you. Why did you decide to participate and why do you think this is important?
So the group was started under Chief Hartold, former chief of police. Her assistant chief, Chris Arneson, called me up one day and said they were forming this group and she wanted me to participate with the group. So I agreed, and that's how I became part of the group. And
Why is it important?
well, it's very important. I think Guy covered it. I mean, I've always been, the people out here know me, I've always been a community guy, right? Community first, my job second, right? And meeting some of these guys on this group, like I've been knowing Guy forever. You know, Guy and my brother, they grew up together, they were good friends, they played basketball. But then I got to meet these other gentlemen, and that's what's really important, because the relationships that we've established over the years, we really start bonding and becoming like brothers.
Thank you. Will, how about for you?
I was not one of the founding members. I've known Sergeant Warzinik my entire career. We came on right around the same time, and he was part of the group for a really long time. And he would always tell me about the conversations that he had and how valuable the group was, and it always intrigued me. And when he invited me to the group, my first thought was, I got invited to a group like this because I'm doing something right. So I was very honored. So I came in and I met the guys. They told me their mission statement, talked about the conversations that they had, and one of the things that I've learned throughout the time that I've been here is everyone up here is comfortable being in uncomfortable conversations, and that's very, very important. And I realized that that's something that's always been very important to me. My entire career, I've always been the person on any call, in any community event, in any situation where I've been calm and composed and willing to have those tough conversations with anybody, no matter what their viewpoint is. And I think that that allowed me to fit right in with these guys because we don't have the same viewpoint in any topic. We all come from different backgrounds, but we found a common goal. And that was extremely important to me.
Thank you. Yep, Prince.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Prince Corbett, Director of the Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Department at the City of Minneapolis, which brought me to why I joined this group. So I started in this role 2 years ago, and when I started, they was like, Prince, your department has racial healing, and we need healing with community and police. And I'm like, so what, y'all want me to roll up and just do some healing circles without police? Like, that's very disingenuous. And then before jumping into something, I always do like research. So I was doing some research and came across the Police and Black Men Project. And the website, I was like, ooh, this is what real racial healing is about, having relationships and conversations. So I seen Guy's name on the website, so I've been knowing Guy like 20 years. So I reached out to Guy and was like, hey, can you tell me a little bit about this group? It was a couple months before you got back to me, which...
About 20 years, I think, yeah.
But the timing was good. It was only a couple months, and the guy invited me to the group. So
Turn your mic off, Guy.
So I come not as, not from my position within the city of Minneapolis. I got invited to the group from community, representing community, but it also connects to the work. And Bridget, I love that quote. You need to get that trademark. Minnesota is the Mississippi buried in snow.
All right, Damian.
Hello, everybody. My name is Damian Winfield. What brought me to this group, I am a father of many children, and they live in North Minneapolis, and they're growing up. And I know what it was like for me to grow up over in North and South Minneapolis as a kid, and all the things that I had to deal with, all the people I had to encounter, the gangs, the police, the different just entities that flow in the city. I wanted to be a part of change, and I wanted to be on the inside and not on the outside looking in, as well as being a part of an organization that wanted to push forward on change. I was asked to be here by my coach, Guy Bolin, and Bill, and I think they asked me in because they trusted me with the keys of change. And with that said, that's why I joined this group of guys. And at the same time, I'm looking forward to North Minneapolis flipping back over to the neighborhood that we all know and love. So that's who I am.
Okay, and George.
Hello, everyone. My name is George Warzinik. I've been with the department since 2007. My undergraduate degree was in international relations, which kind of boiled down as how different groups of people interact with each other. And after the police-involved shooting and death of Jamar Clark exposed the huge rift in the neighborhood that I didn't know that existed. And I was running around the precinct going, who are we talking to? Who are we building bridges with? And it turned out to be nobody. And then when Dr. Doherty asked me to join this group, I jumped at the chance. So here I am.
You're the first one that didn't mention knowing Guy Bowling forever. Well, you know everybody, Guy? What is this? Yeah. Okay, Brantley, you've known Guy Bowling forever. So start there.
Okay, so I'm gonna start there.
Yeah, go for it.
First of all, thank you guys for being here. Justin, appreciate the opportunity to be on this microphone in front of all these people. Thanks to Guy, I was a concerned father when I came to Police and Black Men, leaving Father Project, single father with kids, raising a kid, and just wanting to be part of the change. I was from that lifestyle, so I knew what police officers had to deal with being out in the community, no matter what color they was. So I figured I'll be that person to actually speak for the people in my community that didn't like the police. So that's why I became one. And thanks again for Guy giving me the opportunity to show that. So I've known him too for a long time.
How many of you out there know Guy? No, I guess we don't. We have a theme, and if not, why not? I'm going to ask a question about sources of mistrust between police and black community, and as we begin to discuss it, if a couple people would like to join us in those seats to be part of the conversation and share your answers to the question, we would welcome that. And we don't all have to answer every question, so don't feel you have to. But the question is, what barriers, both personal and systemic, make it difficult for police and black men to see each other as partners for community safety? What are the barriers to trust? And anybody who wants to start, well, Guy, I mean, you have to start.
I'm just blessed and fortunate to have grown up in this community. And so I know a lot of folks I grew up with, but either way, I'm blessed to even work with all these gentlemen on the stage. But I would have to say, the barriers, I mean, from systemic barriers to history, prioritizing enforcement over relationships, I think has long been part of that history. And I think the other piece is also personal, is because for those folks that just are distrusting as well as fearful of the police, and police being fearful of the community itself, I think those are some of the challenges. And so oftentimes, and even if I did a survey of folks in the room as well as in the community or even amongst the stage, what was your initial introduction to the police? And you would probably hear a varied number of answers, from being in the schools and seeing police in the schools, but they're dealing primarily with kids with behavioral problems, so you see that. You see that being questioned on the street corner when you're hanging out with your friends and whatever you may doing that may not be illegal, but you may be harassed in that sense. The other thing is you may be the traffic stop, and you could even be a passenger, or you saw an encounter with your family and the police came in because there was an incident that happened. So there's a lot of negative experiences in terms of people's introduction to the police that's personal, but there's also positive ones. So for me, part of the reason I had a heart to know that we can do what we've done and what we continue to do is that my initial introduction to the police was more from a positive one in a mentorship role in a program, because I was a member of, many of you may have heard of this recreational facility in North Minneapolis called a Boys and Girls Club. And so I was a young kid, newly from Chicago, trying to fit in, and was always finding myself in situations where I had to defend myself. And so a member of the staff at the Boys and Girls Club happened to be a volunteer police officer who wasn't in uniform, pulled me to the side and said, every time I'm here, you're always fighting and you're always upset, you're always angry, what's going on? And as a kid, you don't tell adults that you're being bullied because you don't feel comfortable enough, because you figure you have to resolve it yourself. But anyway, he pulled me to the side and said, meet him at that location on a Tuesday night at 4 o'clock, and he ended up being the one that got me involved in Golden Gloves boxing, and I ended up boxing for about 10 years. So it was a positive encounter that I knew. He didn't know me. He didn't look like me, but he brought me in, and he was positive. And so that was my initial introduction, and this was in the 70s. You know, on the heels of the civil rights movement and all the things that was going on during the turbulent 60s, this man brought me to this recreation and this sport and treated me like a son and brought me within his family. So that has lingered within me for all these years to know that was my initial relationship. So I know if he could do that, there's many more like him that's still willing to do that, and a number of them sit on this stage with me right now.
So how about one of the police officers, sources of mistrust? You want to go, Charlie?
Well, I guess the sources of mistrust is basically we don't know each other, right? And I think that's the biggest problem with this world. I mean, when we started off, everything you heard about black men and police were all negative, right? We see all these cycles of violence with police and black men. We sat down as a group, we were in a battle. Me and Justin went head up every time we met, you know, and then we had Dr. Yeager was in our group. We had some strong black men in that group, and it was a battle. And then we started sitting down trying to come up with what we wanted to do as a group. We had these plans, what our action plans, I guess we call them. We all came up with this plan, and then when Justin presented the plan to us, we actually started arguing about the plan. So Justin starts laughing at us, and we're like, well, what's so funny? He says, this is the stuff that y'all came up with. Oh, we did? So, but the thing was, we all wanted a safe community. We wanted employment. We all wanted the same thing. That was the police officers and the community. We wanted the same thing, so we came out to that outcome. But we sat down, we met with each other monthly, and we be able to understand each other, and I think that's broke that barrier amongst a lot of us here.
Yeah, how about, George, did you want to?
I think part of being human is we like to lump ourselves into categories and groups. And a lot of times, us as police officers, one of the barriers we get is, we become a convenient boogeyman. And there's nothing us police officers hate worse than when we're walking through Holiday or walking through Cub and a parent will say, you better be good or we're going to have the police take you away. And you're like, oh, don't set the kids up like that. But it's very easy for us to also become very jaded because we don't get called to houses when the birthday party's going well. There's a fight, there's a stabbing, there's a shooting. So when we go from tragedy to tragedy to tragedy, it can become a self-defense mechanism almost sometimes to build up those walls, and you have to remind yourself to continue to reach out to the good that's in the community.
But community member, sources of mistrust. Sources of mistrust. Why is there a history of mistrust?
Well, I guess I could speak on that because I was in the street and I was always getting bothered by police. So just start there. I was not a good person to police. So having that bad encounter and then having kids and wanting to change that, and this group came along, I figured why not? Let's try and see what happened if I can make a difference. The distrust comes from most police officers don't live in our hood. They ain't from our hood. So they trying to tell me what to do in my hood. Appreciate you, Will, for being in my hood. So him growing up in my hood and my neighborhood, I can know him. I know who he is. He's a person just like me. George, learn him through the program, but someone I can rely on, count on, and tell my kids about. So just having to be on the opposite side and knowing the difference and what they go through on a day-to-day basis of going on calls. I've also done many of ride-alongs with a few of these guys on my own personal time just to see what their life is like in my own community. So it makes me work a little bit harder to show my community. You might not see this publicly, but behind closed doors, we are doing something about it. Trust me. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, Prince, do you want to talk to the barriers, systemic barriers?
Yeah, I would say thinking about barriers, one of the barriers is just the historical history between police and black communities that have not really been healed or resolved. Speaking for myself, like as a black man in the community, police was surveillance, police was arresting, police was controlling. I remember came to Minneapolis in '92, and then I remember the Code 4 initiative back in the '90s. And what I knew growing up about Code 4 was like, hey, if you're black after dark, you're probably going to get stopped by the police, and then you're probably going to get taken downtown if you don't have an ID to get ID'd, right? So, and this was a revelation for me. Like in grad school, one of our guest speakers was a police officer, a former inspector, I believe, who said that when they did Code 4, they just was focused on community safety because there was a lot of issues and problems. He was like in that class, that what they did not realize was the adverse impact that it was having, like around the relationships between communities of color and police. And in that class, he offered an apology. And that apology was the start of rebuilding trust. And then I remember the first time I met Inspector Adams because I was on Netflix and ended up watching the documentary Power, which the Police and Black Men Project was a part of, but it was about paramilitary policing and the history of it, and Inspector Adams was on there, and this was my first couple of months at the city, and I was like, oh, I gotta meet this guy, he's speaking some real truth. And then I seen Inspector Adams outside of City Hall, and I think I ran up on him with a great smile and was like really appreciated. But having that history and breaking the history and getting outside of our own comfort zones is one of the barriers, because we don't trust what we don't know. So if I don't know police, I don't trust police, and I don't have relationship, and vice versa.
Yeah, Damian, you want to weigh in on this one?
Is this about mistrust?
Yeah.
All right, let's get in where I fit in. A young kid in North Minneapolis throwing rocks at the Minneapolis public housing cars. If anybody remember those over in the projects. Yep. I was one of those kids, and I learned that from other kids in my neighborhood. That's how you have fun. You throw rocks at those cars, and you hope you'll get their attention so they could chase you down, and you run.
You run fast. Yeah.
That was what we did as kids, though, and it was reality. That was fun, though, for us, right? If you got caught, that was a different story to tell. But we enjoyed it, and it's funny because we kind of look forward to doing that every weekend night when we should be at home getting ready for the next day, kind of thing. The mistrust came when I got older, right? And having that kind of fun, hanging around my buddies, doing what boys do, man. This is what we did. We started doing other things. We started stealing cars. We started taking purses. We started selling drugs. And I'm looking at, like, I'm coming from Gary, Indiana, and I knew I did really good back in Gary. Good grades, everything. You know, I come from a Christian family and all that. And if my granny knew what I did, I knew I'd get my ass whooped, forgive my French. But that was the neighborhood I came from. The mistrust came when I found myself running out with my buddies and we stole a car that was already stolen. And we got caught. We took it from North Minneapolis and we went over to South Minneapolis. And this is where we were in the middle of the street and the police seen us. It was 4 of us. It was a 2-car door car. 2 got away, 2 got caught.
Oh, which group were you in?
I was one of the guys in the front seat with the access to the door. But I got caught, right? So we run. I mean, I'm in tears here, folks.
Yeah, you're just a kid. Yeah, you're just a kid.
And we run and I get caught. So long story short, I jump a fence and I look up and I see a dog on the roof and I look back down and I twist my ankle. And I'm like, what was a dog on the roof? Right? And I get caught and I'm limping over to the next block. And
Put the mic up to your face.
Sees me, and I'm gonna hurry this story up, and he sees me, but he takes me back to the next block. And when he takes me back to the next block, I can tell he was frustrated at chasing these kids and finally catching them. I don't know how many times these cops have to do this thing daily, right? I know this was my turn. And when he caught me, he took me back to the block. He took me out the car. He put me on the ground. He had my hands behind my back. He lifted me up and he stumped me down in my back. I was only 15 years old.
Yeah.
I had a back print in my back from the boot and my mom could see it. We didn't press charges or anything. My mom was like, that's what you get. That was the kind of family I come from. Growing up now, knowing these guys, and I told them about the story and they was like, Damian, that was wrong. That was wrong, you know? And to hear the compassion from a police officer say that about another police officer, right? Like my trust was gone then. I was one of those kids that hated the police as a kid. That's why I got deeper into the gangbanging and everything, because I needed protection from not just the streets, but from the police. So these are the things that boys go through as growing up. And nobody sees that as a system. It is, it's a system. We need something better for our young men to do in our neighborhood. Guy Bowman took me in.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you got Guy in again. He was feeling bad.
Yeah. Guy Bowman, like his same story, right? I was at the community center over in North Minneapolis, Glenwood Community Center, just playing basketball. I was a little kid, and he was building a boxing ring in there. And he seen me, he was like, hey, you, can you box? And the first thing I was like, yeah, but my mom told me not to mess up my face. And ever since then, me and Guy has had a relationship. He took me in at the Citizen Father Project and built me as a man now that I approach life differently.
All right.
So that was my mistrust turned into trust at the same time, but that's who I am.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So Will, everybody else has weighed in on this, and so I'm going to give you a chance. Sources of mistrust, and the next question is going to be about how we restore trust. But so feel free to say negative things if you want.
So Guy Bowling, I'm just kidding. My answer is a lot simpler. It's mature conversation. That's what it all comes down to, mature conversation. Even when I started this job in 2006, it would be very frequent, very often, for us to be on the scene of a traffic stop or a call, and it's not going so well, and people would come out of their houses, their apartments, and scream, "What is going on?" And it was very often and very common that you would hear a police officer yell back, "Mind your business." Those were some old timers that came from a different generation long before me. And because I grew up in Brantley's Hood, I grew up in North Minneapolis, I saw a lot of police interaction growing up. And I remember kids in high school would always say, "My friend got pulled over, they got pulled out of the car and they got taken somewhere and I don't know what happened." And I would say, "Well, why don't you just go ask that cop over there?" And they'd look at me like I was crazy. "I'm not gonna go ask that cop. Are you crazy? Because then I'm next." I never quite understood why they couldn't just walk up and ask an officer a question like, "Hey, what happened over there? Why did my friend get arrested? Why did you guys run up in that house?" Whatever the question might be, and they looked at me like I was insane. And I just never understood why we couldn't have simple conversation. Come to find out it's because I look different than them. Because I could go up and ask them those questions. And I did go up and ask them those questions. And I survived every one of those contacts. So when I became a police officer, I was one of the ones that I wanted to give that answer, whether they liked it or not. If somebody came out and said, "Why did you just take my son out of the car and arrest him?" and the other officers are getting back in the car to go leave, I got no problem telling you, "Here's what happened. Here's the evidence we found. Here's what we were told. Here's what we know. Here's what the process is going to be." And I have found that there's so much value in that basic conversation, even when the recipient doesn't like the answer. They still deserve an answer. So to me, everything boils down to clear and concise communication. And in this group, I've said that 1,000 times in our meetings. They've heard me say communication 1,000 times. And it's near and dear to my heart. And I think because of my military background, when we were told to never shy away from what's going on, never shy away from a conversation, never shy away when you're wrong, and that's a big part of it too. And I brought that to this career field. And so I think that one of the barriers we have as a society is that we don't communicate the way that we should.
All right. Yeah. You and Damian are the only ones who got applause so far. I just wanted to note that.
Well,
Even Guy Bowling has not. So, and I certainly have not. So I just wanted to say it. Oh man, it's not the same. Somebody else looked like you wanted to say. Okay, so I'll move on to the next. So I'm going to go to the question about police accountability, because that's what a lot of what we're talking about now. And in our project, and Justin has brought a lot of this thinking, is how do we establish mutual accountability, and how do we do police accountability that isn't just oversight. Okay, isn't just oversight, but is about relationships. And so I'm interested in hearing from everybody, in particular the police folks here, about how you think about police accountability in this world now that's different from just watching you make a mistake. Charlie, could I ask you to go first?
So, after the death of George Floyd, a lot of things changed in law enforcement around the world, and especially here in Minneapolis. I get people constantly saying they haven't seen any change, they haven't seen this. We've had a lot of change. First of all, we lost over 300 to 400 officers, right? Some of them were good officers who just left. They just quit. And there were some who should have left, right? I mean, when the city council said, let's get rid of MPD, they don't realize they did that. The ones who were having issues with left. They were upset, they were pissed off, they left. Let's see how the city fares without us. Well, we're still moving on, right? So we do a lot of training. We have under all these orders to get training done. I was just telling somebody today, I was in 2 training periods this week, I think we're a very good trained organization. We were before this happened. people don't pay attention to what we're doing. They pay attention to the negative stuff that comes out of MPD. They don't go to our websites to see what our police activities leads are doing. They don't see the work that my precinct's doing. So, I mean, there's a whole lot going on, and I can tell you, like North Minneapolis, and I can only speak for my precinct, no other precinct, the violent crime is down 60% in North Minneapolis, you know, and if you go over to Broadway in Lindell, where we used to have 626, they call it the murder stop or murder station, Merwin's Drug, and you've seen all the criminal activity over there. It's not there. It's gone. And then it wasn't only NPD that got rid of that. That was a community effort. It was a community effort. We all worked together. The West Broadway Coalition, various other groups that worked together to get this thing done. Yeah, we did our raids, and we took a bunch of people to jail and got a bunch of guns and dope off the street, but it was also a community response. And I think that's what you see in my precinct. I don't get the complaints. You know, the complaints, I'm dealing with it from 5 years ago. I'm not getting these first complaints. So I can see the change internally because I'm the inspector. I'm the guy that gets all the complaints. But I also want to commend the officers that we have in the precinct. I think it was 2 years ago we had an open bid for precinct. I had a lot of hostile cops who didn't want to work for me. They didn't like my style. They left. They left and went to other precincts. That year we were the first precinct to fill up. We're the first precinct to fill up. So I started talking to people, oh, why did you want to come over to North Minneapolis? Back in the days, it had always been, yeah, because this is where all the action is. That's not the response I got. It's because they said they wanted to come because they know the residents in North Minneapolis wants the police and they respect the police. That's why they were there. And so the cops I got over there want to be there. They're not there for the action. They're there because they want to serve the public, serve our residents, and that's why they're there. I'm going to say this and I'll be done. We just had a bid started 2 days ago. We were the first precinct to fill up. All right? And I did not lose. Usually we lose a bunch of cops. I didn't lose really hardly none. So that shows that our relationship with our community in North Minneapolis is something that could be modeled all through the city. We do offer my precinct's open, so you can get there and get any kind of service you want. I have a community navigator, Melissa Mai, she's here. She's like the jack of all trades. She does everything for us.
Hey, Melissa Mai, stand up, would you, Melissa Mai, community navigator. Yeah.
And Melissa Mai is a Northsider, so that also helps. We have Cece, she's our community navigator, but she's our domestic abuse person. She does all the order for protections, all that. We offer all those services, and with Melissa coming in, there's other services she can get up to the county. So that's how we build that trust in North Minneapolis. And like I told Cece, she's a white female. When she first came to work for me in community engagement when I was a commander, people were mad because we hired a white woman to do domestic violence work. I told Cece, I said, North Minneapolis ain't about your color. It's about what you do. It's about what you do. If you serve folks and help them out, you're going to be all right. Everybody knows her in North Minneapolis because she's always serving. So I probably went off rail there, didn't I?
Yeah, it was good. Hey, you think I'm going to mess with you on this? Yeah. So I'm interested in the officers. So Will, police accountability. How do you think about that and how that's changed?
Well, I think Inspector Adams has said pretty much everything that needs to be said. I mean, if people are paying attention, you see that North Minneapolis is a completely different world than it was at certain times. And I mean, that's a testament to the work that we have done. It's a testament to the work that these guys that are sitting on either side of me have done, the various community groups, just like he said, the relationships that we have with various community leaders who show up on crime scenes, get out of bed, get in their car, drive to crime scenes, have face-to-face conversations with us, get factual information, rumor control, get on social media, tell people to stop lying, and it has made the biggest world of difference. And we could never have made the changes in North Minneapolis that we have without those community members that were willing to drive into those crime scenes and have conversations with us in the rain, in the snow, in the 100 degrees, in hostile crowds. We see it all the time. We welcome them. Again, we couldn't have done it without them. On the opposite side of police accountability, for people that don't know kind of how the whole internal affairs discipline process goes, I won't get into great detail, but when there's an investigation in internal affairs and the investigation is finalized, it goes to a panel that has 2 civilians and then 1 lieutenant. And they get to review the entire case, every detail of the case. They get to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and they get to decide whether there's merit to the complaint or not. And those are 2 civilians that don't know me and I don't know them. And so they have a part in the accountability. And what's funny is the amount of times that the civilians will write in there, this investigation led to the belief that the officer did not do anything wrong. It happens all the time. And I've spoken to these people after the fact who said, I got this job thinking that every time I got a case, some cop was going to get fired for this egregious act. And what I found out was, you guys aren't doing all the things that we thought you were doing, and that there is a lot of false claims and false accusations. And they are spreading the word out in the community for us. And they hold us accountable when need be, but at the same time, they have an unbiased opinion, or not opinion, they have an unbiased look at the case, and they write their own summary on it. So there is a huge community aspect that goes into the whole process, into the internal affairs investigation. So I've heard the old theory, the old saying, we investigated ourselves and we did nothing wrong. And I'm sure that there was a time and a place where that was as true as could be, and it is not true today. Take that to the bank.
George, you want to add to that?
As a shift supervisor, we get a lot of new recruits that come through the shift and spend some time training. And I'll usually, on their first day, I'll pull them aside and I'll say, when you're out there on the streets, if you run into someone you need to arrest and there's a scuffle or anything like that, be professional, but handle your business, because everybody in the community has Inspector Adams' phone number. He will hear about
And what is that, Charlie, just for the sake of it?
and Guy Bowling's. And if you treat someone who doesn't deserve it, he's also going to hear about it. And then I'm going to hear about it, and then you're going to hear about it. So everybody's on their toes to treat everybody like their grandma until they can't. So.
Yeah, so the theme of mutual accountability is a big part of our work, and Justin preaches that all the time, that if we're going to have safe communities, there has to be police accountability, and it wasn't always there, right? Let's be clear about that. It's getting a lot better, and community accountability. And so I'd like to hear from some of the community members, because we have a lot of discussions about what's the community's responsibility in all of this. So who would like to start?
I could jump in real quick. So accountability from communities piece, I think, is, as community, knowing what are the processes and policies of the police department. Like Will just explained and broke down, like the internal affairs process. Do we understand that process, or are we going off of a narrative that someone else told us about a process that happens within the department, right? And from being a part of this group, I learned a lot of different processes and a lot of different things that I did not know or understand about how Minneapolis Police Department does things. And I'll give, thinking about one example, and this is where different narratives came out about a situation, not in 4th Precinct, but it was in Lake and Bloomington over the summer when the feds came in and did a criminal investigation over on Lake and Bloomington, right? And the narrative out there, because police had showed up because they were called in, the narrative was MPD is supporting ICE immigrations, right? And I just got to be real, we're dealing with this administration for another 3 years. There's going to be more of this that happens. But after having conversations with folks, it was like, no, community, you actually might want Minneapolis police there when they're showing up for immigration raids, because they have to have the body-worn cameras, right? So the feds aren't necessarily going to disclose all of that information and have it out there if anything happens, but that is a narrative of kind of distrust with community, and how do we bridge that? So that's accountability, is getting to know the processes, getting to know the procedures, getting to know at least one person. And I got friends who are stone cold abolitionists. They want to do away with police and law enforcement. But for me, it's about building relationships and being a bridge builder.
Brantley, I think you got something to say.
I don't know about. That's his world. That's not mine. I'm not speaking from that accountability. My accountability
All right.
is
Thank
from,
you for joining us.
my accountability is with my community. Everybody know we all have nieces, nephews, cousins living on the block, and we also have an elder on the block. That comes from us controlling what we have on our block. I get mad at some people when they say they want to call the police. You don't have to call the police. Go get auntie. She know how to control him. Cause when they call, they gonna run. So my accountability comes from me making sure my community, like Corbett said, know all the ins and outs on policing, basically what their job is. Cause once I found out that they wasn't a part of a lot of things, I was like, okay, I can't blame them for some of those things. So me being just a father, a concerned father from that lifestyle, me just helping them out, helping my community understand what these guys are talking about. I'm gonna be honest, I call it corporate talk, and they laugh because that's what it is. It's just a bunch of people blaming people when we all need to take accountability for each other's actions. And that's all I have to say.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. So how would you like to get
Hello, my name is Thomas Berry. I am the Minneapolis NAACP Vice President. And I was just sitting over in the corner listening to your conversation. And I want to add some things. I want to add a name, Mariah Samuels. Because Mariah Samuels happened in the 4th Precinct. And the failure of the 4th Precinct led to her death. So it's easy to sit up here and have a conversation like everything is sweet with the community. And what is the community's role? The community is not paying itself. The community is the boss. It's the taxpayer. The taxpayer is supposed to get services. So what happens when law enforcement does not serve the community? Now, my issue with all of this stuff is sometimes when you put our community, I'm talking about African Americans, in the mix of power, we don't change. What we do is we go in and we assimilate the power, and then we start pillow talking the conversation. Our community struggle, I want to say this because the people that's calling, typically they got the contracts with the police, the city, and everything else. And so they call and they're running PR for you on social media. And sometimes when people are talking truth, they're telling them that they're lying, even when you can see the video and know that they're telling the truth. So we have to call that out. And if you really want to get change, this is a domestic violence situation where the city is the abused, and sometimes law enforcement is the abuser. And the abuser, the only way to feel comfortable is to shut the abused up for talking about how they got smacked last week. And we have to have that uncomfortable conversation in all spaces, no matter what our affiliation is with the entity. Because as long as we keep lying, we're going to be that domestic abuse survivor that keeps getting that black eye. And we're going to keep on asking, why are we getting that black eye? Well, we're only speaking kind in mixed company. We're never speaking truth to power, never talking about how we really got here, how this formulates all the way from the plantation. So what is our accountability as the victim? Are we the only group of people that always have to be accountable as the victim? We would never say that to a domestic violence survivor. So I don't think the community has much of an accountability. I think it starts with law enforcement because you are getting paid to sustain the peace. And if you sustain the peace, then everything else will fall up under the umbrella.
Thank you. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I want to agree with this brother. I'll be honest with you. I'm most definitely serious about the domestic assault, especially that case. I can't get into the particulars, but I can talk from 4th Precinct standpoint. When the first initial report was taken, it was my officers that took that report. And I just told you about Cece. She's the one that sat down and did the order for protection for this young lady. So the 4th Precinct did its role in that. And we went out that morning to try to find that guy, and took another report for the violation of order for protection. We searched, we couldn't find them. People, we don't have a warrant to go arrest them, so we can't violate anybody's right and leave the city and go arrest them. So folks don't understand that the 4th precinct is a patrol response precinct. We have only investigations for property crimes. That's burglary, thefts, car thefts. That's our only role. You have a whole division downtown Minneapolis that deals with domestic violence. Now, if I get domestic violence cases, we call it domestic gone on arrival cases, but there could be cases from 6 months ago. Then my investigators, the 2 I have, plus 1 civilian, then they will investigate that. Melissa Mai most definitely works on a lot of these cases too. So you're right, bro. We need more people to help us with this domestic. We don't have enough bodies. My thing is, and I've already said this to Councilmember Vital, can they push to get us civilian investigators like we've had now so we can most definitely deal on these domestic abuse cases. I personally would love to have a domestic abuse investigator in my precinct so they can work alongside with CC and with Melissa Mai, where they just come to the precinct and we can handle all that stuff now. Now, I've directed my community response team, the CERT team. Now, if we see cases like that, and I've told the chief of that, we're going to pull them. If it's not a sign, we're going to pull them and we're going to work them, because I don't never want this to happen again. All right, but I want people to understand that I was really upset about it because I know family members in that family, okay? So it ain't like I'm just sitting back running my mouth and talking. I am from North Minneapolis, all right? So I care deeply about my folks over there, okay? Appreciate the comments.
Beautiful, thank you. Thank you. Well, we have 8 minutes to go here, guys, and with one final question, and that is, what's it been like for you to be part of this project? How has it affected you? How have you, what's it done for you? And just no more than a minute each, okay? So Brantley, you want to start? How has it affected you being part of this group? And there's others who are not here today.
Appreciate you coming up and telling that story. I don't get too much into those, but I understood them when I heard them. Again, when we talk about community accountability, everybody knew in that community she made police calls. Everybody knew where he was. If you didn't know where he was, didn't nobody tell. So that's on, I just wanted to say that. So it's not about who's blaming who and what people did. It's about what we came to do together to find that person, to make sure it didn't happen, but we couldn't because people were being, oh, I don't see this, or I don't want to do this because I'm scared my house gonna get messed up. Let's not get into that. And I just want to say that, but that's why I got into this police group, because any negative thing that goes on in my community, I'm either gonna say something or I'm gonna do something. That's the reason I ride on this. That's the reason I believe in this, because I'm a big action man, like an action hero. But I want to be that for my kids.
Yeah.
So my kids know what I stand for, not what I did.
Thank you, Brantley. Yeah, action hero. Which one? No, it doesn't matter. Yeah, George, what's this been like?
Anything I can do to try and make my job and my officers' jobs easier, it's obviously worth the effort, and we have to keep trying. And this has given me a lot of good perspective, separate even from myself and just start seeing the world through different set of eyes.
David.
If I told my mom some of the stuff I did back in the day, she'd be like, what? Boy, I'm gonna beat your butt, right? And with that said, it's like, my mom didn't know I was stealing cars. She didn't know I was out selling drugs. My mom didn't know I was skipping out of the house. I was out there being a criminal, and somebody had to stop me, right? Long story short, accountability is clear. Like, as parents, you gotta know what your kids are doing. So I'm in this group because I have, for one, I have boys that are running around here and daughters that are living this world too. So let's be clear, I want them to be in a safe place at all times. I can't watch them all the time. I can't be where they are all the time. But if I know that that this world is turning over. Like, it's really hard to think about where your kids are and you can't be there to save them. So that's the reason why I'm in this group, to try to get some safety in this world somehow. I don't know how to really express it, but I can't be everywhere at once. So with the way things are going between the streets and between what's going on in policing, like, where can you count on somebody to save you?
Thank you. Prince?
Yeah, so what sticks out with me is when we all went down to Montgomery, Alabama last year. We went down there to tour, the Civil Rights Tour is what we called it, but the Equal Justice Initiative, so the Legacy Museum, the Lynching Memorial, we visited the Rosa Parks Museum, the Freedom Riders Museum, and to be in the heart of the South, and also the heart of the Civil Rights Movement, and visiting the Baptist churches where they congregated and made plans at, to be in that space with police officers and having some of the deep conversations we had and shared about the history of policing, that was transformational. It was like my 4th time in Montgomery. And to that, I would say it was something that I wanted to do when I started at the city. So before the consent decree and the MDHR settlement agreement, I wanted to take the leaders in the city. Thank you. I wanted to take leaders down to Montgomery, Alabama, to have the real conversation about the history of policing. And I'll end with this. I just remember somebody sharing, like, one of the officers, like, now I kind of have an idea of if I pull somebody over and there's this apprehension, where that comes from. There's a whole history that I have to reconcile with. So I'll end with that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Will, can you repeat the question? Why have you liked being around? Why have you liked being around Guy Bowling for all this time? So
The answer is obvious.
So what have you gotten out of being in the group?
So why would I want to come to work and be surrounded by enemies all the time? Just like, why would these guys want to live in a community looking at the police as enemies? Knowing that I'm out in the streets every day and I can encounter a situation where somebody in that situation knows Guy Bowling. They know Prince, they know Brantley, they know Damian. If I'm in a bad situation and Brantley sees it like a superhero that he is, he's flying into the area, and I know he's going to have my back, and he knows I've got his. Mm-hmm. So knowing that I've connected with some of the most powerful people in Minneapolis that have connections that run deeper than I'll ever know is a benefit to me. And hopefully them getting to know Will, not Officer Gregory, is a benefit to them.
All right. Your Guy Bowling, is it? Yeah. The Guy Bowling. So,
You guys do me a favor. Can we give a big round of applause to our moderator, Mr. Bill Doherty? I was going to ask all of you to line up so you can give him a hug, but I don't think we have time. But with that being said, as you could see and as you're learning and hearing what we have accomplished, as well as what our mission is and who we are and what we've done, but to still the hopes and dreams of who we still hope to be, this camaraderie that you see, the teasing that we see back and forth, all of this has come through many different challenges and confrontations with one another and different ideologies about what we have and incidents that has happened, such as the one that you mentioned, Thomas. And so there were times we had to have those real conversations with this young man right here, as well as the other officers. Tell us more about, so we can understand it, so we know kind of who was in the wrong, what your responsibility is, accountability, because accountability is also about shared power, right? So understanding how we can be involved in that process. But our whole goal in terms of what the mission is of the Police and Black Men Project is all about, we started out wanting to do cadet training. We did one right before George Floyd happened. We want to do more. Also housing advocacy, we want to do that, and we want to do community presentations So all the stuff that we learned with one another, and also supporting this outstanding leader right here. And I'm gonna ask for one more round of applause. This outstanding leader right here at the 4th precinct has done an incredible job. And we know one of the biggest protests in the history almost of our civilization happened as a result of George Floyd. He still had to stand and keep all these guys together and keep the community together, and he's still here to talk about it. And he doesn't run from the hard questions. He doesn't at all. And he never ran from us from the hard questions. So we've had these conversations with them, and that's what created the bond that we have with one another, the conversations we can still have. And I hope to continue these conversations with the community so they know exactly what we're doing, but we're also open to suggestions and ideas from you to support our work as well.
Thank you. Charlie, what's it been like for you? What have you gained from being in the group? Yeah.
So, being a part of this group, when I said initially got into it because I was only African American to get into it, but I can tell you, I was always taught to serve. And that came from my mother, but most importantly, this lady sitting right here, Mayor Belton. I worked for her for 8 years. I was her chief of security, and I was with her for 8 years. And we always had service projects, right? We had to do something, and I couldn't figure out at first. Even I had to do it, right? So
Even I.
yeah, but I learned a lot from her. And those tough questions, I watched her handle tough questions when she was the mayor of this city. So I appreciate you, Mayor. You've mentored me. You've been a great friend. I love every one of these guys up here. I'll tell you a quick story, how close we are. Dr. Coriega, I don't know if you know him. His sons played football out at Chaplin Park, and one of his sons took a knee in the game for the Kaepernick stance, and they were going to suspend the kid for 6 games. That's probably the entire season. So Dr. Yeager was part of our group. He calls me. I'm on a plane on a runway in Iowa, and he says, I'm bringing my kid to Minneapolis North. So I'll give you some context. My son's the head football coach at Minneapolis North. I'm the assistant coach. I've been there for 14 seasons. Dr. Yeager brought his kid over to us to play football so he can have a season, and then all of a sudden his other 2 kids followed. So it shows you what connection we have with each other. I'm just not, sitting here saying stuff. I have a true connection in my community, and these guys are very much my family. So I want to end on that. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. So let me just say, you may have noticed I'm neither a police officer nor a black man. And so I've had the gift of them trusting me to moderate and facilitate, and we haven't gotten into how they give me a hard time, but you can see the love and the teasing, and we appreciate the opportunity to come here and present to you, and we're going to hang around afterwards. We're not doing Q&A, ma'am, I'm sorry, because we are overtime, but we're happy to hang around and talk, and thank you for your attention here today.